Welcome back to another episode of the EpicEarth podcast, a show for those curious about the STEM field and the awesome, quirky, and fun experiences and research that is taking place right now. This is episode number 20, Outreaching for the Stars. So hit that like, follow, and subscribe button, then sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride as we take a journey around this epic Earth.
I found it all so fascinating, just learning all the information.
Nobody told me I couldn't do it, and I loved it.
And now I know how to learn. Like, this is a doable thing.
You know, that's an impact that we can't ignore.
Hey everyone, it's another episode of Epic Earth. I'm your host, Ashley Bosa, and with me I have my co-host, Brian Rosenblatt.
Hey, happy to be here.
No Scott this week, and I have no news for this week, so I'm going to dive into introducing our guest. She is a nonprofit professional and a geoscience nerd, which we'll get a little bit into, but she is currently working at Boise State's College of Business and Economics Career Services, so she's done a bit of a transition. She grew up in Idaho and attended Utah Tech University and Boise State University. And probably the main thing she's here for, which I'm very excited about, is she has a passion for STEM outreach. So welcome, Mattie Honea.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's exciting. We love to get people outside of our department and outside of our field sometimes to come and talk about their experiences. So maybe we can talk a little bit about your career services side of things, but let's start by having you just tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you you?
And now,
what makes you you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what stays most on brand for today is that I am someone who's just always been fascinated by STEM. I've always been very passionate about all things STEM since I was very little. It's something that my parents really encouraged. I, grew up doing, and all of my fondest memories growing up have to do around science. So, on top of that, I consider myself a forever learner. I love always learning something new and trying something different. I think you'll probably hear that a little bit as I talk about my experience, because it is kind of a little bit here and a little bit here and all over. But I think that kind of adds to what I bring. Outside of that, I was also a really big theater kid growing up, so I love putting on a show, love being in front of people, and I think that is what made outreach something really attractive to me, something that really brought me into that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I am not a very theatrical person, but I do love to do outreach, so it's fun to see the different personalities come together, and it's funny. I feel like outreach does sort of bring a lot of those personalities into it, because there's so many different ways that you can do outreach, and it brings out a different personality in everyone too. I'm not very theatrical, but I really love to go and do these STEM activities with students all the time, and it's so much fun. So great, that's awesome. So how did you get interested in your field of study or work or STEM outreach? You said you got a little bit into that, but sort of give us a little bit of how your path was for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for me, I always knew I wanted to go into a STEM field. I was in gifted and talented growing up, so that was really put into my head by the people around me, by my parents, of yeah, you're gonna be a scientist, you're gonna do this. So I always knew that's where I wanted to go, but I didn't know what the thing would be. I think my first memory of geoscience becoming that thing was my grandparents and my mom and I went on this trip on the way to Mount Rushmore, and we were walking around, and I looked down and there was these shiny bits of something in the grass, and I was like, Mom, why are there fish scales all over the grass here? And she picks it up and she's like, no, this is mica, this is not fish scales, these are, it's a mineral, and she explained it to me, and we went back to our camp, and she put it in a little egg carton and wrote mica on it, and that was the start of my rock collection. So I feel that was very intrinsic and getting me there. I would say things went a little off course when I got to college itself, because despite my passion for rocks, I didn't see a clear career. I didn't see I'm going to be in a research position, or I'm going to be doing this specific thing. And so because of that, I just did a lot of other opportunities and took a lot of different jobs. And the one that I think brought me into outreach the most is I was teaching earth science high school at a residential center in Utah. And that was, that a good shift towards outreach, towards teaching STEM, towards that informal education realm where I felt my passion for science meet that I can do this and I see myself doing this. And so after that, I moved back to Idaho and I started working at the Discovery Center. If you haven't been there, it's a hands-on science center. It's really fun. And so I got to combine that love for telling people about science with that bringing people into this field. And so I think that kind of got me doing the outreach and the STEM outreach that I'm doing now.
That's really awesome. Yeah, we love to hear sort of how people get into STEM and then how they get involved in STEM activities, because it's not a linear process for everybody.
No, yeah.
Not everybody has to go to college. Not everyone has to do this research. Not everyone has to get their PhD. And even if you do start on some of those pathways, sometimes, you sort of fall into these other careers working for the Discovery Center or, whatever. That sort of allow you to still incorporate a lot of those STEM activities into what you do, but it's not directly maybe always related to STEM, or even if it is, it's maybe not just the path that everyone thinks of, that everyone's got high accolades and 1,000 publications behind them. Yeah, and that's awesome. I love that. I think it really is key to getting students, especially, recruited into STEM pathways, because it can be so daunting for little kids especially, and I think it's really important that we show them that, hey, you don't have to spend 10 years of your life in college to do the things that you're really passionate about with science. And
that actually reminds me of the outreach activity. We might have talked about this in the past already. But there's a pretty well-known STEM outreach activity where you have students draw a scientist, and that's all you say for them is draw a scientist. And when I first started doing that activity 5 years ago, everyone would draw a white man in a lab coat with crazy hair holding a beaker of some exploding potion, which was awesome. But then, at my most recent job, I was at Girl Scouts and managing their STEM program. First time I did this to them, every single girl just drew herself with a dog or helping someone or out in nature. And it was a very emotional moment for me because I was wow, I wasn't expecting that. But I think that does show what outreach is trying to get at is everyone is involved in science, involved in STEM. You don't have to have this lab coat on. You can be doing whatever it is you're passionate about, as long as you're passionate about it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. One of the questions we always ask students when we go out and do our outreach is, who thinks they're a scientist? And then we say, have you ever been curious about anything?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And have you ever had a question, that you've asked yourself, how many bugs are in this tree? Or why does my brother pick his nose so much? Or anything, just to get the kids thinking, any question that you've ever had and you've ever, wanted to investigate makes you a scientist and makes you part of that STEM field. So, yeah, so awesome. I love that they just drew themselves. So, yeah. Great. So, why then do you think community outreach is so important?
Yeah, I think I have two main thoughts around this. And the first is that as we just mentioned, STEM isn't just a space for research for someone with a master's, a doctorate. It's this is a space that other people can be involved in. I think that outreach is a place that anyone who is passionate about it can get involved. You don't have to be an expert on biology to go do biology outreach. You don't have to be an expert on dinosaurs to go tell kids about dinosaurs, but you can just have a lot of part in it. And that's what's going to get people stoked. So I think that community outreach is a great place for people of all abilities and backgrounds to be in one space. And that kind of gets into my second part of outreach is that connecting piece for the community. You have people who are professionals in their field talking to people who have never heard about these concepts before, and it might spark something for them. It might change something they do in their life. They might never remember it again, but like it's important that it's a place where people are able to share these thoughts in a very, I would say, open and inviting space.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree. I think, we're promoting so much of it these days because it is such a key component to communicating with the community, having that sort of mediation between, okay, like here's like a lot of jargony science up here, and how do we communicate that to people who are not going to understand those terms or are like turned off by those terms, but we do it in a fun way, right? Yeah. Like, of course, with kids, like we go blow stuff up
and they're not going to remember like the chemical reaction that happened, but they'll remember that like you added these two things together and it went boom, and they're going to be like, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back to the first point you made there, where you don't have to be an expert to do outreach. I had a direct experience of that. I did my physics undergrad and I moved to geophysics for my master's, and it was within like my first month of starting that I got asked to go do a volcano outreach thing. And I really felt like I knew nothing about volcanoes whatsoever. But Alex Witzel was like, no, you got this. Like, you can do it. So he took me out to a school, and we were there the whole day. And it went super, super smoothly. But I feel like I have a certain personality that matches that. I love to speak in metaphors. I'm not a theatrical person, but when I have people in front of me, I tend to be like put on a show a little bit. So that comes out of me. Do you think there's like, kind of like how some people are built to be athletes, do you think people are built to do outreach, or anyone could do it?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I want to say yes, and like I think anyone can build a skill that they're not comfortable in. I know like growing up, theater is what helped me communicate well and like be in that space. So I think those who are good communicators, this is a great place to be in, because like we all know from taking these courses, these are some really big concepts that you're breaking down for someone who's maybe never even heard of it before. So like that is a special skill to have, of being like, how do I explain geologic time to a 6th grader? Like, how are they going to understand that?
Yeah.
But I do think that there are other skills in outreach outside of communicating. Like, there's a lot of ability to be creative in the activities that you do. There's a lot to be said of the people that just get this stuff set up and like are able to like coordinate all the pieces of it. So I do think like special spot for people who do kind of want to put on that show, want to be the one speaking to people, but there's a space for anyone.
I agree. It's like anyone could play football. You don't have to be built for it to be playing it, you know. So
yeah,
cool.
I do think one other thing about outreach, and this is probably like special to the fact that I've gotten to work in outreach, is like you're able to reach communities too who would never ever experience this before. Being in Idaho, we have a lot of rural spaces, and at both the Discovery Center and at Girl Scouts, we've had rural STEM outreach programs. So to be able to go out in those communities who don't get the same in-class STEM experience that a lot of us do, they don't get those same labs, like to bring that to them. And then even further to make it not a classroom. Like, no, we're having like a fun activity. This is outside of school. Like, I think that's a special place that outreach can go up and above and bring it to those special communities.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. And sometimes, even those, the teachers, like you said, like they don't have the resources to teach those lessons. So being able to bring those resources in and give a lesson on something that maybe they're not as familiar with, or they're not as comfortable giving, or they just don't have the ability to do it. It's so awesome to reach those communities. And from what I've heard, you've just done so much of that, just even around the Boise area. So I admire you.
Oh,
You're like
you.
my hero. So what would you say is the best or most fun thing that you do?
This was by far like the hardest question I had to prep for, because there is like, I've got like years of these just really random experiences that are really fun. And so like, the most fun thing about outreach is that you never have the same experience twice. Even, when I was working at a science museum with the exact same exhibit, every time I took people through that was an entirely different experience. One of my favorites at the Discovery Center, they had Sue the dinosaur, and freaking out about dinosaurs already. And they also had an exhibit from Stewart's Gem Shop that had like coprolite and dinosaur bone in it. And I just had nerded out over this for the 6 months we had the exhibit. And they were hosting an event, and I was just supposed to be like, walking around as an educator to answer questions. And there's all these like fancy people in nice suits, doing a nice event. And someone overheard me talking about this dinosaur, and they all like congregated around me, and I ended up giving a tour of the entire dinosaur to this group. And they were like, "So are you the expert on this?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I just like really love this dinosaur." Like it was just a really cool opportunity for people to like be like, "Oh, this is just fun. Like let's just get involved in on this." So that was one thing I was thinking about.
That's really fun. For our listeners, can you just describe what coprolite is?
Yes. Okay. Coprolite is dinosaur poop, but it's actually really pretty because it's been fossilized, so may or may not have like a necklace made out of it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I love this.
But are you wearing it right now?
No, I should have. I should have like totally worn all my stuff today. So I got like amber stuff too. Like, oh darn. Coprolite is fossilized dinosaur poop. So what's cool about it is you can learn a lot about the dinosaurs from it. If it's like red coprolite, they were an iron-eating dinosaur. They ate meat. And so I would kind of like sit by the coprolite exhibit as kids would walk by and be like, "Do you know what this is?" And they'd be like, "No." I'd be like, "It's dinosaur poop." And they'd be like, "Ew, gross," and freak out over it. So it was pretty fun.
It's amazing how many, because I worked in a geology museum, we talked about this, but it's amazing how many of the students just like kind of congregate towards the coprolite.
Yes.
They're like, "Do you have dinosaur poop?" I'm like, yes, we
do.
do.
We do, actually.
It's like the most fascinating thing. Like,
I think
here's a velociraptor skull. Don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see the poop.
Oh, I remember, like, it was literally next to fossilized, like, dinosaur eggs that were, like, opened, and I was like, that's kind of cooler up to me, personally, but it's fine. We'll talk about the poop.
To each his own.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about... I'd like to just get your thoughts on girls in STEM, especially because you've worked with the Girl Scouts, and so you have some experience in terms of trying to recruit more women into the field. And so what are your general thoughts on how the STEM field is like heading, and what we're doing as scientists to sort of make sure that women are being represented in the STEM fields?
Yeah, I would. So I would say what got me into outreach, honestly, is that exact thing. I experienced a lot of barriers in my degree that made me very passionate about ensuring that someone else would be like a little tougher to get through it, or like they wouldn't experience it. And so after that is when I transitioned. I moved to Girl Scouts, to manage their STEM program, because for me that was like, oh, this is perfect. It's literally like bringing girls into STEM. Joining that organization, I learned that they have an entire initiative to bring 2.5 million girls into that STEM career pipeline. So the past 4 years working at Girl Scouts was getting to work with like amazing partners with these badges. Like NASA wrote the Girl Scout badges, and these like big coding partners wrote these coding badges. So I got to see kind of from a different perspective, like how everyone else is prepping for this at this younger level. So these big organizations who employ women in STEM are starting at that level where they're making sure these girls already know about them and they know they're being supported. I think I got to be in a very unique position being at Girl Scouts because those girls are so like already ready to do STEM. Like they are very curious and like go-getters and like ready to do it. So I think I got to be around the ones who are like already very passionate towards it. And that was just really special. But I do think like STEM has so much opportunity for girls because there's so much creativity in it, and there's a lot of skills that girls and women have that I don't think we realize are like as skillful as they are. I think creativity is one of those, and that's something I saw doing engineering workshops with these girls when they're making prototypes of robots out of cardboard boxes, but they're solving these huge crazy problems that I didn't even think could have a solution. And so I think really what's important is that from a very young age, all those skills that girls have are encouraged, like every single one of them, because you don't have to just be good at math to go into STEM. You don't have to love science to go into STEM. But if you're creative and you like communicating, or if you are good at math, like there is always a pipeline there. So I think like That's a long rambling thought about women in STEM, but that's where I'm at.
No, I couldn't have said it better. I think that's awesome.
And I think a key point there is like you're starting them young, which like you mentioned that you were in a gifted program that kind of like kickstarted this. I was also in a similar program that I feel like got me to where I am today too. So I think that is like super important. How long has that been going on with the Girl Scouts?
That initiative had started when I had started it,
Okay.
or at Girl Scouts. So I know that it has been a big important factor for them. But you know, even going further than that, their first STEM badge was released in 1916, and it was a circuitry badge where the girls had to like rewire stuff in their house, and I'm sure that is like such a big overview, but that's something I thought truly like what brought me to Girl Scouts was learning like, oh no, this has been an intrinsic part of their program from the beginning.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
I know, how cool, right?
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah, I feel like go Girl Scouts, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny because one of my nieces was in, or might still be in Girl Scouts, but I remember like her first year, she was raising money through the cookie sales to go to a science camp. Yes. And I was like so stoked, and I was just like, I will buy like 30 boxes of cookies and like, send you to science camp for sure. So
yeah, I mean, this is gonna become like the Girl Scout STEM day.
Yeah.
But like 2 of the things I can think of is, one is in my council I ran 2 STEM days. One was here at Boise State and the other was at ISU. They just happened last weekend actually. Well, one of them did. But this is something that we work with the colleges to put on an event with 40 plus community partners, and each of them had a hands-on table for those girls to come in and like learn about coding, learn about robotics, learn about circuitry, like really cool concepts. And there's like, I came and visited because I'm not working there anymore, but there was like over 120 girls at this event, and so that's something really special that's happening, all over our state at least, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I'm really digging in like to the science and the, giving it to Idaho.
Yeah.
Come on, Idaho. That's so awesome. And yeah, I honestly couldn't have articulated it any better than you did. You did awesome. If you could describe outreach using an analogy, what would it be?
The first thing that came to my head when I read that was Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yes.
Because I feel like, and I feel like he's like, that is outreach to me. You know, someone rolled a TV into my classroom and this guy came on in a funny lab coat and he taught me about science and I like got super stoked about it. And so, we talked about, putting on a performance, and I think some of us in the outreach world do put that Bill Nye cap on before we go in front of kids, and we're like, hey, I'm going to do something that, like, they remember it, it's fun, but it's educational, and then they're going to, like, continue to want to get a little bit more after this. So, like, you get to be silly, but, like, you're also still, like, educating people, so it's fun.
Definitely, and I feel like the silly part of it is the thing, like, I don't know, as an adult, I'm still, like, Bill Nye.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Watch all of his videos.
Yep.
I feel like Bill Nye is such, like, a generational thing.
Yes.
Like, we watched it so much, I did at least, like, going through middle school and whatnot, and, like, when you said draw a scientist, like, I probably would have drawn Bill Nye at that age, so I don't know if students nowadays are still watching, like, Bill Nye or whatnot.
When I was teaching, well, I mean, this is like eons ago.
Not that long.
Okay, it was like 15 years ago, but still. When I was substitute teaching, they did have Bill Nye lessons, like where they were still watching it. Yeah. So I don't know how much of it is actually incorporated into classrooms these days, but it should be because he's such a great guy. Like, I don't know if you've ever read any of his books, but
I haven't.
His story is like he's a physicist, and he wanted to do something that was like fun and like silly and like, but that outreach component, and it's just like he's a fascinating guy. So read his books. Yeah. Promoting Bill Nye the Science Guy. And if you don't know who he is, YouTube him.
A lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, you have a ton of catching up to do.
I want to sing the theme song, but I think we'd get copyright for that.
See, I think that's how I know kids do know about him, though, because they will definitely chant that like at any given moment. So someone's teaching them.
That's commendable. Do you have, so we talked about your Sue, the dinosaur.
Yes.
Do you have any other fun stories from your work with Outreach?
Yeah, I have kind of like a cool opportunity through Outreach. When I was working at the Discovery Center, I applied to be in a Sustainability and Science Museums Fellowship through Arizona State University, and was accepted into it. And so we went to Chicago to the Museum of Science and Industry and did a week-long fellowship. I did get to go to the Field Museum and see actual Sioux as well, which was like so amazing. And then we got to go to the Shed Aquarium for like their adult night. So, you know, alone it was just a really fun science-y experience. But with that, we were given funds to then do a project, an outreach project of our choosing. That was like totally open-ended. And so at the time, working at the Discovery Center, we had a hallway that was just blank. And so with those funds, I put together a sustainability-themed art hall. So I put it out to the community to submit artwork or photos that they felt represented sustainability. And we had a lot of submissions, but like all ages. Like I think our youngest was like a six-year-old. We had someone who's 60. So truly like all ages were submitting into this art gallery. And so we put it up in there, and the community got to come and like caption it with how they, you know, thought about it. It was at the same time we were doing the Mythbusters exhibit, and so we ended up like using all the leftover duct tape to make like chairs. So it was like very like sustainable. And so that was, I think, one of those like very proud outreach moments of the first time I got to see people come in and see their own artwork in it. I remember the young boy who won, because we had like a prize for it. He took a picture of the co-op, and the co-op was like so happy about this like picture because it was just so cute. And so getting to see everyone participate, getting to see people come visit it, getting to see them think more about sustainability was just, I think, a really special opportunity.
Yeah, that's super awesome. That sounds like in your creativity of having to think about sustainability and like what does that mean and how does it look, and that's really cool. Gosh, I don't know. You have so many awesome stories. Like I feel inadequate actually with my science. I'm like, wow, Mattie does so many cool things.
I'm definitely like pulling out the best ones though, because half of mine is like, I'm really short, so they had me go inside the dinosaur skull to turn off the roaring noise. Like, there's a lot of
you know, it's all part of the job.
That's still really cool.
Yeah, I know.
Or like we had
it's a good conversation starter.
One of those like 2 truths and a lie. Like I've been inside a T-Rex skull.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we think outreach is awesome. We do it because we love it, and we think it's a great way to get involved. What would you recommend to people who are not involved or are sort of on the fence about whether or not they should do outreach? How would you get them involved? What would you recommend they do?
Yeah. So when I did my most of my undergrad in Utah. So despite living in Idaho for most of my life, when I came back here, I did not know like what was going on. So what I would recommend people do is like do a quick catalog of what's going on in your area. So I just Googled like geology in Boise or geoscience groups in Boise. And for me, I was able to find the local museum. There's Idaho Museum of Mining and Geology, and I reached out to them to see if they had any events coming up. They have a really big event every August, September, so I went to that event and signed up as a volunteer. So it's really about searching what's in your community and seeing what sparks your interest. Museums and nonprofits are always a great place to start. They always want your help. Also, school groups. At the time, I got involved in Boise State's Geology Club, so a lot of Googling. A lot of Googling is really nice. The other thing I would suggest is, like, once you make one friend, ask that friend what they're doing, because that's how you're going to find, like, all the other connections to people. And it's so much easier to go to an outreach event when you know one person. So just, like, get that person in. You'll do outreach with them forever. The friend I made my first year at Discovery Center is still my best friend to this day, and it's because of outreach and because of STEM, so I think it's a really special place to be.
Yeah. Well, indirectly, that's kind of how I met you. It wasn't necessarily outreach, but it was like, I was out in the quad trying to get students to register to vote, and the person that was doing it with me was like, oh my gosh, you have to meet Mattie. She's like the most amazing person, and you two just would like align so well. And so just networking through other people is also great.
Shout out to Pat.
Yeah, she's so amazing. Cool. Well, Mattie, this has been awesome. I'm actually going to finish up with some quote-unquote serious questions.
Oh, yes, I love these.
Yeah.
Serious question.
So, my first serious question to you is, and this is all thanks to Brian.
Okay.
Are there more eyes or more legs in the world?
Oh, this is like the doors and wheels thing, isn't it? Okay. Eyes or legs? I'm going to say legs. But are we counting like bugs?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say legs.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Even including like fish, though. Like fish don't have any legs.
Okay, but centipedes have like enough to make up for it.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is going to get me for a long time. I'm going to commit to legs, though.
I also think legs.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What do I think? I don't know. Because at first I was like, well, wait, are we just talking humans? Because maybe, like, there's more eyes because people get legs amputated and then...
Yeah.
But then you said everything and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
All right, maybe not.
I'm going to go look up, like, how many animals have more than 2 eyes?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. Bugs also have a ton of eyes as well.
That's true.
So. What's their eye to leg ratio?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Oh, gosh.
Some fun math.
Yeah, that would be a dissertation, I'm pretty sure, or a career of counting. My next question is, if you could be a superhero, who would you be and why?
Oh, who? Okay.
Or not, I guess, what would you be?
Okay, I was
what
like,
would be
I'm
your
not a big
superpower?
Okay. I actually have always had this question ready.
Oh, heck
My
yeah.
superpower would be able to, like, understand any language. Like, but, like, also, like, cats and stuff. Like, any language. That would be my superpower.
That's probably, like, the most practical, like, answer to that question we've gotten.
I have had a lot of, as you know, informal ed is the place to ask silly questions. So I've had a lot of practice for this one.
That's good. We gotta bust out the big guns then.
Yeah, totally. I know. Oh, okay.
Super serious.
Yeah,
serious
totally.
question.
Super serious.
I mean, I can ask you guys a super serious question.
Sure.
Oh, gosh,
You can use this one too.
Okay.
If you could keep any small animal in your pocket, and this means like it is a large animal that can be shrunk down. If you could keep any animal in your pocket, what would it be?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess mine would be a bear.
Ooh,
I
cute.
like bears.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're cute at a small size. I mean, he's not going to do too much damage. Hopefully.
Trying to think of something practical. Like I don't know, like a squid maybe or something.
Oh, squid.
Could use it to like reach out and grab things.
Like one of those sticky hands.
I don't know, would it be able to live like out of the water?
Yes, all logic does not apply
Okay.
to this small animal. It can like breathe in any air, yes.
Huh.
Yeah, or just a whale because they're the biggest, so it'd be awesome to see it like really tiny. Yeah.
That'd be
Nice.
cute, for sure.
I always
like
pick a
a-
dragon.
A dragon?
Like a little dragon.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, then I've got the question for you.
Okay.
If you were a dragon, what would you look like? What would, like, your fire-breathing power be?
This question was like made for me. Did any of you have the dragonology books growing up?
No.
Did you know about like the Egyptology, any of those?
No.
Okay, you have homework. You need to go home. You need to Google the dragonology books. This is probably why I am the way I am, but they're these like, they look like someone went on a study and brought it back, and it's got like pieces of dragon scale and like writings about like what they looked like in the wild, so it feels like it's like an authentic piece of research. And there's a dragon in it called like the Quetzalcoatlus. It's like based off the like the one in Mexican folklore. So I'd look like that. It's like a long green serpentine dragon with like kind of like feathery peacock like hair. And I think I would like, instead of blowing fire, it'd be just like wind. Kinda cool. I was ready for that one.
You were. It's funny because like one of my friends, like a group of girls, came up with these questions for admittedly asking guys on dates, but
oh, nice.
yeah, so it's like right to like see how creative they are.
Yeah.
So you're telling me these are pickup lines that you've...
Not even pickup lines. Like, I'm just, like, testing
filter.
you. Yeah, like, are you creative or are you not?
You can just commit to telling me what type of dragon you are or not.
Yeah.
Mine was... my answer, which is, like, totally ridiculous, but totally my personality, was I look like one of those Disney dragons that's, like, blue with pink polka dots, and then, like, I have really, really tiny wings. And I wouldn't have fire breath. I would, like, just sneeze and have a glitter bomb, basically.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. That's basically my dragon.
That's cute.
What about you, Brian? What would your dragon be?
I'd be... Okay, so you've probably seen Shrek.
Yes.
Like the newer Shrek where Donkey gets married to the dragon and then they have kids. I'd be like the kid donkey dragon.
I love this.
Yeah.
Hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid donkey, hybrid dragon. They have little wings. I don't know. I haven't seen them grow up yet, so I don't really know what they look like fully mature. But
Interesting.
I love that. That's such a niche answer. I love that.
I was thinking about that.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad we all have answers to our dragon question.
Yes.
So, and thanks for sparking that.
Yeah, anytime if you need more questions.
Not that I'm trying to test you on a date here, Mattie. I'm just...
Did I pass?
Mattie, this has been such an awesome interview. I'm so glad we got to talk to you. Thanks for, like, promoting outreach and continuing to, delve into the sciences and to get everyone excited about it. We need more people like you out there.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It has been a wonderful time.
Good. And yeah, if you guys are interested in outreach, feel free to reach out to us here at the podcast, or we can forward your information to Mattie and she can give you tons of ideas on how you can get involved. That's it for this week. We'll check you guys later.
Have an epic day.
Well, that was an epic conversation.
We'd like to thank all of our listeners.
Tune in next time for another Epic Earth podcast.
What would you say is the best or most fun thing that you do? What is the best or most fun? I mean, you've talked a lot about